11th meeting to order, and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business is the approval of minutes. I've reviewed them, and they're recommended approval.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Next one is an RDA on 83 Campbell Road.
This is a filing in response to an enforcement order. Portions of the work are after the fact and portions are still yet to be done. I reviewed the delineation and we made a few flag changes. Those are reflected on the plan, but when the changes were made, they actually still left the old line there as well. I think Heidi's asked them to fix that. But other than that, I'll let you tell them what's been done and what you still want to do.
I had, we bought the house, it was beautiful, blah, 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 blah. It was all mulch. And when I went to, after we had the house for like a year, the mulch needed to be redone, and I have well water. So the mulch with all the chemicals in it, and it was $60 a yard, and I thought I'm gonna put grass instead of mulch because it's not only better for my environment, and we're drinking the water, but it's gonna be easier upkeep, and then, you know. So we did that, and then what we wanted to do was we wanted to put a deck and plant grass out front.
So I think some of the work that has been done is there's a patio.
Yeah, there was a chicken coop when we bought the house. It was behind the shed, or behind the garage. It was a kind of a big chicken coop, and it had all these stone things, but I didn't really want chickens. And it was kind of in, I don't know, kind of in the woods part. So we took the chicken coop down, and the stone things that were under the chicken coop, we moved to the other side.
So the patio that was constructed is outside of the no-build zone, and there's a hot tub that's been placed out there, but they would like to, the part of the work still remaining to be done is the deck, right?
Yeah, the deck. I wanted to do the deck because, I mean, obviously, the walkway to the hot tub isn't nice. I mean, we did it, you know. So I'd like to put a deck there to just make it nice, I guess.
So there, in Heidi's findings, there was no fill brought in that exceeded the limits of the prior mulch beds in existing yard. There was some minor grade change from the fill that was brought in. And at this point, she recommends putting up wetland markers to kind of delineate the no disturb zone. On one side of the yard, there is clearly trees and vegetation that markers could go on to mark the 25-foot zone. In the area behind the garage, there's been more disturbance, so Heidi recommends either putting stuff on existing vegetation or putting posts at the limit of the developed yard, and allowing, you know, what, kind of where the fruit trees are
Yeah,
to sort of
yeah.
grow back and do its own thing, which would probably be about 10 feet off the wetland on average.
Actually, the chicken coop, I think, was part of that.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
that was-
it's, the grayed out areas are kind of some of the areas that were mulch that became grass.
Yeah.
Jack, any questions?
Yeah, in the area where the fruit trees are, is that, just to get it straight, is that the spot where the chicken coop used to be?
Near it, yeah.
Near it?
See that kind of funny shape behind the garage that's gray? Is that where the chicken coop was?
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
And that's about where the fruit trees look to be, right?
It's just, yeah, it's-
So I think the line that Heidi was recommending be marked is kind of that contour line. I think it's maybe 199
Yeah.
is probably where the wetland would end up being marked.
Yeah, is that grade been changed at all?
Not in that area,
Regraded?
no.
No, okay. Because that was right up against the wetland flag A series. How about on the other side, near the B series, is that grade changed at all?
I'd say the only place that the grade sort of changed, you can't, it's not shown in gray on this plan, but it's toward the back of the yard where,
Yeah.
where there were some, if you look in the photos, the old aerial photo, you'll see some boxes straight back behind the house.
There was like a garden.
That was the area that was kind of filled in, and that's quite a distance from the well, and that's well beyond the 25, or it is beyond the 25.
Yeah, I guess my only concern is we have two areas that are just converting to lawn that are fairly close, well within the 25-foot buffer zone. And, to get that back is important where you're going to have lawn and you're going to be fertilizing and watering.
Well, it was mulch, and I was just afraid, like, I didn't want to put the mulch back because, again, we drink it, and
Yeah, and
mulch is all chemical, so.
I'm not challenging your project intent. It's just that to convert that to manicured lawn requires regular fertilizer, and I guess I'd ask the commission to consider Heidi's recommendations for how we mark that and make sure that that buffer zone, as much of the 25-foot no disturb zone is enforced in those two areas. So other than that, I have no other questions.
Joe? I mean, so just right out of the gate, what I want to point out, just for the people who may be paying attention at home, is, this is one of the older houses out on Campbell Road. It's not one of the newer ones. So, what was probably an age-old, fully compliant house because it's grandfathered in, it's because of the recent activity is the only that brought it before us. It's not like it was a deliberate violation in a flagrant way. And so, I think, accidents do happen, and I think we're fortunate these weren't catastrophic, and I think the remedy is something you're showing good faith in trying to give us. So, thank you for that. We're talking generalities with the markers. That's something, though, if we were to give a favorable action tonight, that Heidi would go out and find the right location so we get them where we want them?
Yeah, I think I was, just sorry, hold on a second, but you have the plan too.
Yeah.
I think this part wouldn't be lawn. This would
Just let it revert.
would revert.
Contour 199, is that going to be wooded?
It wouldn't be I think back here, there's room to have a 25, but up here, this is all previously developed and reserved.
Yes,
So
we get that.
she could keep this portion of the lawn.
Yep.
But this part back where the fruit trees are and below the 199.
Yeah, the discussion we're having, is the applicant aware of this sort of
Yes,
discussion
that's what
already?
I just showed her.
Okay.
So this would not be allowed to be maintained behind, any, kind of going like that. That would be.
Oh, behind the garage, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Check
yeah.
the cool ones.
So what Heidi was suggesting was where the fruit trees were, this would be allowed to keep natural.
Mm-hmm.
You could keep where you put lawn out here, but this would be allowed to
To leave it,
just
let the
grow
lawn
back.
do.
Yeah. Kind of more in keeping with what.
Like, put the mulch back? I don't have to do
No,
that,
no,
right?
just allow
Oh,
it
all
to.
right.
Just let it go.
Just let
Oh,
it go.
all right, all right.
No work is a good thing.
Yep.
Don't have to maintain it, don't have to do anything. And we prefer you don't. So as long as we know what that area is and the applicant's clear, then I don't
We can
expect
condition
this-
it that the markers
Okay.
will be field located with the field inspector.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I'm all set.
Jen, is that the only area where you're gonna put markers?
No, what I was saying was the area that's kind of to the bottom of the screen as we're looking at it, there's trees over on that side of that we could put our markers on. the town has wetland markers that just basically say,
Oh,
you know,
right.
no dumping, no disturbance, no, and so you could put a couple on trees, and the only thing behind the garage, there isn't any kind of vegetation to put them on.
Right, but I wouldn't put anything back
So
there anyway.
you put a post or something and put a marker on it.
Probably a total of 2 posts.
2 posts and then probably 5 or 6 markers would do it.
And on the recommendations, there's that Japanese barberry that you transplanted.
Yes, I put it in the back.
Yeah, but it's in the wetlands and, or in the buffer, 25.
It's a real nasty plant. The berries from that plant will be transplanted by birds all over the backyard.
Oh, I was
So-
thinking I would, if I put it, I'm like, all right, if I put it there, then the animals won't be able to eat the birds, so they'll have like a little safe home. That's-
Yeah, it's just a really
Actually,
bad
it'll attract the
plant.
birds.
Yeah.
And you might be baiting for the other animals.
Oh, I was thinking they couldn't get into it because there were little thorns in it.
So staff would recommend that you removed it?
For sure.
Okay. Aside from that, as long as you understand about the replication there, well, not replication, we're kind of just letting it go back. That's the only issue we have. So I'm all set. And the deck doesn't matter because
The deck's
Side.
outside the 50.
it's outside the 50
Heidi did recommend some erosion
So
controls
this is
on
a
there.
deck to be built, or,
to be built.
To be built.
so should we call it a small project, just handle it through a negative,
No, because we don't allow violations to be small projects.
so just handle it through the,
Right,
whatever action
and
we're taking tonight?
there was work done in zones where it wouldn't have necessarily, as we're talking, wouldn't have been allowed.
Okay.
But it's out of the 50 anyways.
The deck is.
But so then,
So
The
it
whole,
doesn't even
the
apply.
whole project is being
Doesn't
considered,
even
though.
apply to us, does it?
what's within 100, so,
It's in it with the hundreds, with
Oh,
the
yeah.
hundreds.
it's within 100, so it's within jurisdiction, but we can handle that through this enforcement action.
So we-
And through this NOA process.
So Natalie, me a question, how big of a deck you put? Because it's not on the plan.
Oh, I thought he put it on the
No,
plan.
Well, it's just, it says, it has a picture of a deck, but it could be 50 by
Oh,
50.
oh
it could
God,
be-
no. No, just a small deck. It's probably about maybe the width of this table.
It's got, it's big in that.
I
But
don't,
No, I know.
I don't.
Porch, not a deck.
No, it's like like a narrow deck.
when
like
they
a
do
deck-
peak, when they do, what are you gonna?
Something that the hot tub is gonna sit on top of?
Well, this one shows the hot tub, that white square is probably
Yes,
where the
it's
hot tub
actually kind
goes.
of like in it.
And then you got a perimeter on the,
Yeah, like a deck around it. So not like a big,
but you're gonna
Massive
put
deck.
tables and chairs there.
So you're looking about 6, 7
oh, I don't think
I'm
so.
not seeing that.
Okay.
Should we, if we're looking at this photograph,
So
Here we go.
6 feet, you said?
probably don't have much space between them.
Yeah. Like I don't want like a,
Let me just point to this. If I'm looking at this, stairways out of the back down to a patio area
yes,
and a deck around like this.
yes, yep,
That's it, right?
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, like the deck coming, yeah.
Catwalk.
Kinda, well, a little bigger than that, but not like,
No.
not a,
Well,
No.
what are you gonna do for, you gonna do a pre-construction on this or nothing? At least
what
so
does
so they
Heidi-
could supply us with the size of the deck. I mean, I'm
Recommends-
not gonna nail it till
No,
Lucy
Heidi
now.
says, that recommends pre and post construction
All right.
inspections.
So
So
the detail on the deck, we can get at that time.
we can get it that time.
Yeah, fair enough.
So that's why you can decide how big you're gonna make it.
I thought when he did it, he did like the plan for the deck, like
14 by 18, according to that.
14-foot deck?
14 by,
Wide by 18 foot.
Oh, I don't think I
well,
want
like,
to deck that big.
well, like the picture of the reason I'm asking is the picture of the, of jacuzzi is pretty good size, it's not small.
Oh,
And
no,
you,
it's,
and you have it in the plan, and it's only taking like maybe a quarter of it.
Doug, scale it up.
Yeah. I mean, the size, we just want to know, so it's on a plan.
oh, right. No, I don't want a 14-foot deck. I don't want a big deck. I thought he wrote it out on the plan, but I can get you a plan. I could call him.
No, the dimensions are not shown, but I scaled the dimensions
Uh-huh.
off the plan, and it's 14 by 18.
Some of that might be the
He's
patio.
looking at
Yeah,
the patio.
I think
Doug,
that's the-
you-
yeah.
It's not the tub, no, it's the patio.
Right.
But the patio's there and it's gonna stay there.
Right,
The deck
right.
is gonna stay on top of the brick
Patio
patio.
isn't there.
And this deck, this walkway is gonna go from living level across,
Across,
just to the
yes.
back of the deck.
Yeah.
That's what we just described.
Well, the building department's going to know how big it is anyways. So, all right, no questions. Yeah,
No, no.
Doug?
No question.
All right, so how, motion?
What do we
I don't know,
need
what
here?
do, I don't know what we make a motion for. We have an enforcement order outstanding now, Jen?
It's on for an IDA.
It's on for an RDA,
It's an RDA.
so
For a negative.
this would
with
be a
conditions.
positive 2B for there's, I'm sorry, 2A for confirmation of the wetland line, because we did review that. And then it would be a negative number 3 with the conditions for pre and post and wetland markers.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. All set.
Thanks. What does that mean?
It means you're all set.
Good
I mean,
news.
we're gonna
Good
write it
news.
up and we'll
Oh,
get
all
it to you
right.
by
That means-
around the end of the week.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, just drop a check off at 10,000 to our Uber fund. And you'll be fine. Thank you. All right, next one is Sharpness Pond and Liberty Road, Friends of North Andover Trails.
So, this is a proposal to reroute some of the Bay Circuit Trail off of the road. If you look at the photo that's in front of you, there is a low spot that's been created by vehicle use on this property in the past. I think things have been done to prevent future vehicle use on this property, but if there's going to be a trail here, they need something that you can get through this at all times of the year, and right now that's not possible. So I'll let you present the details.
Excellent. Thank you. So I'm Mike Agosti, representing Friends of North Andover Trails. Also working with Essex County Greenbelt Association on this, the owners of this property. There is an existing trail there, well-established, been there for many years. I've lived at 995 Forest Street for 18 years, and it was well-established way before I got there. So we're just seeking to reroute the Bay Circuit Trail from Sharpness Pond Road and out of the Nike site area through this existing trail. And this trail in particular, if you can see Exhibit B of the planned site map, is accessed from North Liberty Street through the Lost 50 property, which is owned by the DCR at this point. There used to be a natural obstruction placed across the trail there, but that was removed by the state to fight a fire years ago, maybe about 5 years ago, at which time four-wheel drive vehicles accessed the property and completely destroyed it. So what we're fighting is a lot of damage caused by these four-wheel drive properties. You saw the picture that Jennifer put up. Again, in the time since I started walking that trail until about 4 or 5 years ago, it's about 3 or 4 feet deeper. So what we're trying to do is make it passable again for foot traffic and avoid any further issues to that property. So DCR has installed a very substantial gate at North Liberty Street. That was the first step of the project. Now that that's done and there's no more four-wheel drive traffic, we'd like to proceed with this boardwalk. So I can go into lots and lots of details, but just cut me off, so stop me wherever you'd like me.
Jack, any questions?
Yeah, what's the length of the boardwalk that you're proposing?
We are proposing approximately 100 feet, and that's just based on all the low areas that we've seen. Again, we'll know best once we get in there, and you can see in the picture in Exhibit C there, currently up on the screen, that we're proposing the use of our pan method. Instead of actually digging, we use these galvanized steel pans. That's a boardwalk that we put in last year, and possibly the year before at Harold Parker. So really easy to install and really minimal impact to the wetland in doing so.
Okay. Will it be right up against, it's really in the middle of a trail, isn't it? So it's not going to be up against the street or anything?
No, correct. So
Okay.
it's way away from the street,
Yeah.
quite a distance.
No more questions?
Joe?
Yeah, so the boardwalk is going to be in the existing location where the trail is, or is there going to be an offset or some relocation?
No, it'll be in the existing location of the trail. We did talk about trying to reroute it to shorten the length of it, and we walked it with Jennifer. She very much preferred leaving the trail on its existing location, so we didn't impact the wetland any other locations, just keep the trail where it exists. And go there.
And again, I apologize for right off the bat asking a question, because I should have said at the start here is, what the good news is, every time you guys come here, you come here with a real ambitious, a really good project. And boy, oh boy, you know, it's, the Trails Committee's come a long, long way, and the Friends of the Trails have come a long way, and we really appreciate that. So the questions we're asking mostly are for the public to understand the appreciation of our trails systems and what we're doing to enhance them and maintain them. You're confident, or the DCR's confident, that the gate is an effective barrier for the four-wheel drive traffic?
Absolutely, yeah. Based on the location at North Liberty there's no other way that we can see to get a four-wheel drive vehicle in. We'll never stop the dirt bike traffic, or even, you know, the four-wheelers, but really what you were getting in there were four-wheel drive pickup trucks, Jeeps, and
And that's what exactly my question was, you know, if they're four-wheelers, I mean, not that they should be on the boardwalk,
Right.
or even a cycle who could be on the boardwalk. I guess all well and good, at least they're on the solid surface. But any other, you know, four-tracker or a pickup truck is just simply gonna find its way through the mud, and it's gonna be awful. But if they've controlled the axis and choked it off, that's a huge
Yeah.
benefit.
They went in over the summer, and we've been observing it ever since, and we haven't seen anything in since then.
One last question, I'm intrigued by these galvanized pans. Are they the concrete or mortar poured in them as a footing, or are they just a metal pan that kind of floats upon the natural soil?
It's just a metal pan that sits on top of the soil, and the area of that pan is large enough to go ahead and float on top, as long as it doesn't sink, really.
Excellent. All set.
Well, I'd like to reinforce Joe's opinion. You guys do a great job.
Thank you very much.
If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't have any trails in North Andover, because we don't have the resources, and the town doesn't have resources to maintain the miles of trails that we have. So I think you do a great job, and I get educated. I never knew that Richardson's Farms
I never did either.
own property that far into North Andover and around that area.
So this is quite a testament to our president, Glenn Asbisley, who is an avid mapper, and these maps do not match the assessor's maps. And we provided data back to the assessors to help them. When we tried to get the abutters list, their map is wildly inaccurate, so we gave them this, and we were able to generate the list of abutters, you know, as part of a group effort in doing so. But yes, that's I think it's eye-opening to a lot of people in town. Let's just put it that way.
Thanks again.
No, thank you. We have a lot of great volunteers, Steve Foster being one of the great ones as well, so.
Yeah.
All set.
Doug?
There's a question, this is the area you're improving?
Correct.
Okay, what about this area in here?
The area close to Sharpness Pond there, we would have loved to have run the trail through there, but the beaver activity at Sharpness Pond has made approximately a 200 or 300 foot long impassable area of that trail.
That's a difficult area to get through.
It's
You have
very-
to walk on the islands and stuff like
Correct.
that.
You can cross it across the beaver dam. Let's see, there are a few small islands in there as well, but I would love very much to go through that
That'd be a
area.
nice place to improve.
It would, so taking on a 100-foot boardwalk is doable for us, 200 to 300-foot boardwalk, not knowing that if the beavers will then use that to put another dam up, I mean,
It's a great substructure.
That becomes too much for us at this point.
All right, that's all I got.
I object to the whole project.
I figured you would. That's why I went through.
There's always
We
one.
got both of them count on this one.
So,
right, Lou?
oh, no, actually, that's what I was just about to say. So there are waivers, since this is a boardwalk that will actually cross through the wetland with minimal impacts to the wetland. And obviously, from the photo you saw before, improving, you know, what's accessible out there right now is really wide. I think with the boardwalk in place, a lot of that will grow back in and we'll have less disturbance out there ultimately. And because the bylaw filing fee for something that isn't a single-family house is in the neighborhood of $500, I believe they're asking for a fee waiver since it's a volunteer organization. So those are the waivers requested.
not so much for a waiver, we're going to collect a fee in the form of volunteer man hours.
Yes.
So I think it's more than compensating the filing fee that way. So,
All right, motion?
Would be to approve the waivers at this point.
Oh,
To start.
Wait,
I'm going to abstain.
I mean, it's a waiver under our bylaw, but I just want to, probably haven't made this comment in more than 20 years. But the reality is, one of the interests of the act is actually to promote recreation activity in passive recreation, to be out there. And the more we can get people into our resource areas to enjoy them and appreciate them, the better off we are in our accomplishing our mission to begin with. So this, even though it's a waiver from our bylaw, it's really well within the intent of the Wetland Protection Act to invite people out into our resources and understand what they're all about and advocate for us in the future. So it's a waiver technicality.
I'll move the waiver.
Yeah. Go ahead.
motion?
So I move that we grant both waivers.
So, Al and Joe.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention.
And then, the motion itself is to, a positive 2B, we're not approving any delineation out here, and a negative number 3 with special conditions, mostly just for the post-construction inspection. I've already done a pre with them, we've been out there, so it's just post-construction.
So moved. Oh, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous, and one abstention. Well set.
Good
Thank you very
job.
much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Good to see you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Couldn't have done it without you.
Actually, Steve did he did some of the legwork in the filing, so
We have
he was the closer.
we have a continuance, 242, no file number 315 South Bradford Street, continued to February 8th.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
What about Amy?
Yep, that's a
Oh, yeah, I have
continuance,
one,
as
too.
is 50 Royal Crest, so.
Oh, yeah, that's right. 242, 1688, 30 Ironwood, request to January 25th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Royal Crest is going to continue to when? Next meeting?
Yes.
242, 1696, request to continue till January 25th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. All right, so we have 242, 1689 Salem Street, lots 1, 2, 3, right at the top of the other one.
Right here.
Yep.
1689.
Yep.
Thank God you showed up.
All right. So this was before you previously, and we had a lot of discussion about the riverfront line at that time. The riverfront line is now shown per the discussion, or per my recommendation, maybe even a little bit. Is it eight? Oh, no, per the discussion. We also talked at that time about filing this as a limited project potentially, given that the impacts in the riverfront would exceed the amount of disturbance that would be allowed under the Rivers Protection Act. So the filing you see before you is the follow-up. We received additional information today, which I forwarded to all of you. You might not have seen it all, but I'm sure Phil will present that now.
Good evening. Phil Christensen, representing the applicant. As Jennifer said, at previous meeting, we agreed to use her riverfront line. So the riverfront in our original plan was back in this location, moved up into here. What that did was increase substantially the amount of riverfront on the property, which was why we said we discussed the possibility of filing as a limited project, and the commission suggested that that would be an acceptable filing. Additionally, when that was done, we took a closer look at it and said, well, with this with the different riverfront location, we really need to put the driveways in a different location. Originally, they were a common driveway right here, and then a single driveway right next to it. So we moved it over to a location where you can see there's less riverfront. The riverfront extends to the end of that green area. So what I did was just color that in, and the green, which extends from side to side on the property, is the riverfront area as defined by the new riverfront line, and it's approximately 43,000 square feet. That hatched area on here that looks kind of orange, that's the riverfront area that's disturbed by the construction, and that includes side slopes of the roadway. It's a very steep property, so you just can't get in there without having to cut some slopes on the sides. We did consider putting in walls, but one of the issues is, if it is supposed to be a wildlife area, putting walls on the driveway doesn't help that concern. So it's better that it's sloped. So when we got done with that, we wind up with the disturbed riverfront area is almost 19,000 square feet, which is pretty substantial. However, part of that is stormwater management areas. So there's a infiltration pond here within the riverfront, and that's a stormwater management area, and that's allowed within the riverfront area by regulation. And also infiltration systems here and here are allowed within the riverfront area. So that reduces by 3,600 square feet. So the amount of disturbance then is 15,300 square feet. Now, again, one of the things is how can we mitigate that kind of disturbance? And what I suggest is that for, at least for the sloped areas along the driveways here and here, not within the infiltration pond, to allow that to revegetate naturally to forest. So I would put an easement on that, so that wouldn't be a yard, wouldn't be a lawn. It would go back to being, just get seeded by what's out there, which is oak trees, pine trees, and whatnot. And eventually it'll come back to riverfront area. If you do that, then the total permanent disturbance would be 4,636 square feet. So, and that could be lessened a little bit. I said it, Jen was kind enough to send her comments back and forth to me yesterday and today. And we could even reduce that a little bit more. I have 5-foot shoulders on these drives. If you reduce them down to 3 or 3.5 feet, again, there's a couple hundred feet less disturbance you could have. So that's the project. We do have a little bit more paperwork to straighten out, but we wanted to present this tonight to get your feedback on it and see what you think.
Jack?
Yeah, going back a couple of months, it sounds like you're, moving in the direction that we asked you to do. I think I agree with the general approach, in view that portion of the riverfront area is across Salem Street from the actual channel.
And I don't know if you've been out there, but it's 8 to 10 feet from Salem Street down to the wetlands, and it's steep. I mean,
it is.
Maybe it's a 1-to-1, 1.5-to-1. It's very steep, so that really affects the wildlife value of this side of the street too, I think.
Well, the wildlife value of the site doesn't just come from across the street. The whole area is in NHESP. If you recall, there was another developer who developed next door that also has a common driveway, and NHESP actually has a restriction on that property. There's a vernal pool back there. There is a wetland also behind this site, and that backs up to, it's off of Campbell.
Yeah, I forget the name of that subdivision, yeah.
But it's on there as
Webster Woods?
Webster Woods, yeah.
Webster Woods.
And so there are vernal pools, as you would know, throughout that parcel as well. So I think Heritage's concerns are on this parcel and on this side of the street, not necessarily associated with the river, but I think you've
But
already
that's a
heard
different
back
issue.
from Heritage, right?
Yeah, we've sent them a plan. We don't show it on this sheet, but behind this is quite a bit of property in this direction, that there'll be a restriction on it not to build. That's an issue we're working with Natural Heritage on.
Joe?
Yeah, so exactly what Jack started, I just want to agree that is the direction we asked. We were going back and forth on what the resource line was, you know, the Oxbow, is it part of the river, was it not? And we just kept going back and forth. So you didn't, we acquiesced, we said, that is the line, let's see what the impacts are and how you deal with it, so thank you for doing that. I don't understand again, I'm stuttering here. The onset was, what do you have for access before we got into any greater detail? So I guess I don't understand the rest of the detail on the site. But what we have is an infiltration structure that's being built for what?
Oh, yeah, there's,
Is that just the
you know,
house runoff or?
The other issue we have here is your earth disturbance requirement in town, right? So under the Wetlands Protection Act, we don't have to do any stormwater management here.
Okay.
So, but in addressing that, the town's own earth removal or earth disturbance permit, we have to control the peak flow rates. So what we've done is we do have that one infiltration pond there. The soils out here are terrific in terms of infiltration. And then along the driveways, we're putting in chambers with stone above the chambers, and so that the
Well,
water.
that was my second part of
The
the
waters,
question.
the driveways are super elevated towards the stone and the chambers, and you have a detail sheet on that we submitted. And it will handle, it reduces the 100-year storm flow to, you know, existing and proposed are equal.
So
But
this-
it's substantial because it's an A soil, and as you know,
Is A all the way down to the roadway or?
yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, the steeper section I expect to.
I know. So stormwater is fairly expensive to control.
Okay, so
here.
with the infiltrators on either side of the driveway, you were anticipating my next question, is you've got everything super elevated, kicking across into these collection areas with like going to infiltrate, and the soils are great so that they're able to receive those. You had talked about potentially narrowing the shoulder down from 5 to maybe 3. Given those, I'm not sure if it's advantageous to
Yeah,
take away
well, I
infiltration
would-
area.
I would just infiltrate, reduce, and you can see it more clearly in the plans you have, but the infiltrators are here, but there's a shoulder on this side that doesn't have the infiltrators.
Just eliminate it on one side.
Wherever we don't have the infiltrators, we can reduce. Those infiltrators are up here and over here as well, but this is the only.
They're not daisy chained together, they all just function individually and soak into the ground right
Well,
there.
they are together, and there's water stops between them, particularly down here, because as I said, it's steep, so the driveway grades are steep, so I have 2 chambers and then a water stop, 2 chambers and a water stop. So, Otherwise,
Everything's gonna end up at the bottom and blowing out the road.
Right.
Okay. No, I didn't mean to sound that way, but yes, you've taken those precautions to not
Right.
do that. So I guess what we have is, we asked you to do something, you're asking us now, under the limited project provisions and given these thresholds, which on the surface numerically, they look to be quite large. Do we
Yes.
buy into the theory and the concept of the limited project, 1, and 2, what is gonna be short-term impact, longer-term impact, and then ultimately permanent impact?
Right.
And once you have that sort of feedback from us, then you're able to go back in more detail, because I think there are other permits you need to get, which may cause you to come back to us, like the land disturbance permit.
Yes,
And-
we have planning board next week,
All right,
and part of that will be the land disturbance permit as well.
all right. So, I mean, what you're looking for us is maybe perhaps pull us if we're buying into the concept, so you could go to the planning board with some sort of definitive approach, and if they change something, then come back and finalize it with us?
Yes, and also, if I get enough feedback, then I can help to finalize this, which is going to help on the
Okay.
planning board side as well.
There's a
No,
couple
well-
of things. They're currently in front of the planning board for frontage exception and the common drive, correct?
Yeah, the frontage exception lots, because there's 2 of them, the common drive, and then there's a special permit for access not through your frontage. Which is
Right.
kind of funny if you have a common driveway permit, but you also
Doesn't it
have to get
seem
it.
obvious?
Right, but then, but they haven't filed for their.
Land disturbance.
Land disturbance permit yet. So that's something that would also need to happen
Yeah,
going forward. And we have, I don't think I have a letter from Natural Heritage, so we need to wait for that as well.
okay, I'm all set.
We had last meeting, we talked about entrance. I thought we were trying to get one entrance, but I was informed by Jen that common driveway can only have two houses.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
I mean, because I could see spurring off that second one and eliminating that one, you could reverse the house and.
Yeah,
had
3
one
years,
drive.
not 3 years ago, but it used to be, you could do 3 on a common drive back in the 80s when it first came in.
Right.
I don't know when that changed, but it's only 2 now, so that, and I wrote that up, that's one of the things that we can't do, so we have to go with
Yeah,
a
'cause it's
common
too-
driveway and then another drive.
But it's too bad, it would only be a few feet in the entranceway before you
Yes.
spur it off for the third one. And you could eliminate that one altogether.
Yeah, one of the difficulties though is, if we came up here, we have to get over here, and with the septic systems here and here, and this pond, it becomes a little difficult to swing something through. Could work, but it's,
But but if you eliminate the driveway, you can move the pond to
Yeah.
give yourself access.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
It was the first thing I looked at, and then the guy in the office reminded me, it's only
Yeah.
Only
That's
two
an
lot.
absolute, that's not a, they can't get granted variance for a third driveway.
I suppose they could, but it's a special permit to start with, right?
Right,
You know, so now you gotta get a variance from a special permit, it's a little tougher.
Okay, well, like I said, if it's a no-go, then there's not much I can say. But I mean, 'cause that was my main thing, was cutting into the riverfront in 2 areas where we could
Yeah.
have probably got away with 1.
I agree. Yeah, the only advantage of this location here is that the 100-foot riverfront is back in here
Right,
at this point. But this is within the 100-foot.
right. All right, so you're saying you'd have to go to planning for a special permit?
We do have to go with special permit, but we would have to go to the Board of Appeals
Oh, zoning too?
If you
to
were to
get,
go with the
if we were to go
variance.
with 3, right?
Okay. And there isn't enough room to put that driveway in that area, right? Be too much to, so we still have one opening?
There is, but I think you get into another issue with DPW, just, you might have a feel for this, Joe, but you know, now you got a common driveway, which is 16 feet wide, and then you have another driveway just a short distance away, and it just,
Yeah, it's confusing.
It's-
I know, to me, I would have made it
Looking like a
20,
road.
to
Yeah,
me,
and-
I would have made it 24 foot at the front,
with three on
and
it.
then put 3.
Absolutely.
But,
Years ago, we did a bunch of them like that, but
yeah,
can't now.
okay, no more questions.
But either way, whichever variation you take, you're within the 5,000 square feet. You're less than the 5,000 square feet.
If you were to
you've met the
consider,
standard.
if you were to consider the permanent disturbance, and, you know, us allowing this to grow back to,
If we consider that to be temporary,
okay,
you get under the 5,000 square feet. So whether it's one driveway or 2 driveways, it appears that you've
Okay.
accomplished the math, to me.
okay.
Yeah, I don't, there's, the alteration is still close to, it's not less than 5,000. Well, it's less than 10,
No,
you get closer to 10% of the lot.
It's
Almost 48.
It's less than 5,000 if you deduct the stormwater management areas for permanent
Yeah.
disturbance.
Right, but for lots approved after 97, you only get, and I know Mike's gonna chime in on this, but if it's after 97, you only get 10%. The 5,000 doesn't.
On a limited project, you talking?
No, that's what I'm saying. Just leave it in limited project and don't try to make the math work,
that's what
because
I'm
I don't
saying.
think you can make
Okay.
the math work.
I'm doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
trying to go,
But he's just, okay.
I'm saying, a limited project, he's allowed to alter up to 5,000 square feet, correct? Am I right?
No.
No,
We
the
can- we
limited
can-
project allows him to exceed the thresholds of the Rivers Protection Act, and the Rivers Protection Act is the 10% of the riverfront area on the lot as it exists, because it's still all one lot and it's
Okay.
not subdivided. These lots are gonna be
I
created
thought there was
after
a hard, fast
97.
number. I guess
No,
am
I
I
don't-
off on that?
I think
North River's part of it, but on the,
our Wetlands Protection Act expert.
Good to have an expert witness nearby, Joe.
This is weird.
So, I know it is, but I think it could be.
Not acting as
I'm not actually clarifying for you, Mr. Agent. So the limited project provision, if the proponent couldn't conform to one of your performance standards, the limited project provision gives you the discretionary authority to grant relief from those standards.
Right.
From what I'm hearing in Phil's presentation, you can characterize it as a limited project, but it sounds like he's gonna comply with the standards regardless. And the storm, and the riverfront area regs do allow for the deduction of stormwater BMPs in the riverfront area. So if you do take that out, he's probably not even a limited project, he probably complies with the regulations, at least based on what I'm hearing in this riveting conversation.
All right.
Thank you, Mike.
So that
When
clears
you-
it up for me.
Right. You do get into things like there's supposed to be 100 feet of undisturbed vegetation
So he-
to comply. There are other things he doesn't comply with, even if he gets to that
But-
amount of disturbance.
But you almost, I mean, but the 100 feet of
Right, the
undisturbed,
road's in
the
between.
road already did it.
Yeah, so I
it
mean,
just-
So the linchpin for you is for us to agree that the disturbance is allowed to revegetate naturally and is a temporary disturbance.
Yes,
Okay, gotcha. I'm all set. I'm good.
thank you.
John?
You could just respond to the next couple things. Is there an O&M plan, and if not, why not? And if so, that's great. Why does it appear the pond appears so close to the septic system? And is there any sequencing on construction?
No, as far as the O&M plan and whatnot, we will develop those. I wanted to get through this approach to the problem in the first place. With regard to the infiltration basin, that's allowed under the Title V regulations, and there's a lot of things in Title V, for instance, like drain lines and whatnot. This is water going into the ground, and it's not an issue with regard to Title V. That's why we put it there. But those other things you will have, the O&M plan and the sequence of construction will be submitted.
Thank you.
I have no questions. Jen has here, the project is before planning, and us. So we like to work together if that's possible. Where we don't have a third-party review, that's gonna be a little bit difficult. So I'm up for suggestions.
well, I think we just continue until you at least
Yeah.
have a sense
Yeah.
of where planning's going to fall on
Yeah,
this.
as I said, I
That was
meet with
my
them
point,
next
is it?
week, so the next meeting I can come back and,
That was how I wanted to start, is that we ask you to do something, and you're asking us, do we buy into the concept? Because from there, there's still more refinement you need to do.
Absolutely.
To bring the planning, and then bring back to us.
right.
And then, of course, the whole natural heritage last piece of it. So, I mean, I think, I'm satisfied with the approach. You know, they've done what we've asked to do, and I do believe that allowing it to revert back is going to greatly minimize that impact. And even though the number's not critical, it's gonna bring it into a reasonable amount of disturbance.
So you're not going to rip-wrap those slopes then?
No. They're at, the steepest they are is 3 to 1.
All right,
So, I don't think we wouldn't give a, poll of our opinion on the limited project aspect of this, but
Well, I think we should give them some indication, because this was part of the agreement we made in lieu of putting this out to third-party review. There was essentially an agreement between the commission and the applicant that, you don't challenge the line, and we won't require third-party review, which forces the applicant into this scenario. So we're part of this.
that's exactly, so whatever it is you need to bring to the planning board with a level of confidence,
Yeah.
I think we should give that a partial vote of the project, but at least on the concept part of it, to give him some guidance as he walks away.
Yeah, any way you wanna phrase it.
all right, so we're gonna tell Phil that the conceptual drawings that he have pretty much satisfy us versus the decision and changes by planning.
That's correct.
Does that
Okay.
work for you?
I feel good.
All right, so, all right, so in that case, then we just
Does
need,
anybody object? I mean,
I object. No, just
you always do.
we have one almost,
Who
we have
invited
an
him?
almost objection.
He comes in late and he wants to tip the card over.
just won't be noticed, that's all.
Would you go caffeinated tonight?
Is there
Extra
any,
caffeine?
Double X.
is there any abutters here?
Non-answer?
No, okay. All right, so we need to continue.
So moved.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Now he's caffeinated.
Yep. 242-1692-1210 Osgood Street.
So,
Mike, do you want Phil to stay to help out?
I think we're good. Phil, you might stick around for a minute? I think we'll be all right.
Phil, in case Mike needs a Hail Mary, you might want to, you never know.
Pull out that briefcase. Do you want to go first, Jen, or do you want me to go, or how do you want to?
you could go. At this point, I thought we were pretty much wrapped up and
We are. I'll be exceedingly brief, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, Mike Howard from Epsilon Associates. To my left is Jeff Brown, representing Princeton Properties. Just to refresh the commission's memory, this hearing was prepared to be closed at your prior hearing back in December, but because your next hearing wasn't for 28 days after that, from an administrative perspective, we all agreed we wanted to continue it to tonight's hearing, where tonight the commission would close the hearing and then issue an order when you get to that part of the agenda later on this evening. And I know from speaking with Jen over the past couple of weeks and looking at your agenda, there is a draft decision for discussion with the commission tonight. So with that, Mr. Chairman, we would ask the commission to close the public hearing tonight and do as described.
Just two things that are in the decision, I don't know if you saw it. Us having a pre-construction with a committee of the Conservation Commission, which you agreed to.
Yeah, I haven't seen, just as per the commission's policy, we have not seen a draft of the condition, of the final order that you're going to review tonight, but through my discussions with Jen, it sounds like the conditions are very similar to the ones that we worked on together and that we were comfortable with.
so that was the condition you actually wrote up about having that. You said pre-construction to do the SWIP, but I called it to work on the construction sequencing.
Sure.
And you had sort of put in there the language that we had talked about that we would discuss when stormwater structures came online, as well as the very initial phases with the construction of the walls and the sedimentation ponds and those things.
Right.
So, and then I think we also agreed that Lisa Eggleston could be part of those discussions. And one of the things I discussed with Lou today is there isn't any escrow left. I think after her last payment, there's like $15 or something like that. So rather than put in an escrow condition, we just said at the expense of the applicant, which, if that's fine.
Understood.
But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. But generally speaking, the commission, we don't put out your orders for discussion because they're your conditions, and that's just how we've always
Well, I know
viewed it.
the two of you were going.
Right.
We did, yeah, no, and just consistent with your policy, I have not seen the order in its final form, but again, we're comfortable with what Jen's described to us, and what she's represented to you is consistent with the commitments we made to the commission.
It's irrelevant, but have you hired a new contractor for this project?
No, it hasn't gone, no.
Okay. All right. Any questions, Jack? No. Joe?
No, I think we made the concerns loud and clear with, the stability of the slope and the disturbance area being so great, but also means and methods at this level is just way premature till you get a contract report. So long as you're willing to, acquiesce to a pre-construction meeting where those sorts of details are worked out. Once your contract is aboard, that's probably the only way we can handle it at this juncture.
And I think, Joe, when you see the final wording of the conditions, you're gonna feel very comfortable that your conditions have been, and we've made those commitments to you.
Here's, I'm all set.
Al?
All set.
Sean?
All set?
Doug? Motion?
Close initial decision within 21 days.
Second?
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you,
All set.
folks. If it's all right, Mr. Chair, the order is on the agenda tonight. We'll just stick around to
There's
listen,
no
if that's
extra
okay.
charge.
It is free, that's what I thought.
All right. Let's see, those are all closed.
The entertainment portion of the meeting, we throw it in with the filing fee?
Yeah.
We have
Exclusive ticket.
enforcement order 242-1580, 1018 Osgood Street.
So, sorry, I'm just trying to put all my plans back together before I lose something.
Take your time.
1580 is the Dunkin' Donuts on 125, and
The one down by the airport?
Yes, so we've had some stormwater discussions recently, which brought this one back to my memory, because this has one of those sand filters, yeah, that Lisa said, again, maintenance is a big thing, and so we've been trying to keep track of those ones where we said maintenance was a really big thing, and we put it in the order of conditions that we're supposed to get reports and all those sorts of things. Butcher Boy is another, and they've been very prompt. I get their reports all the time. So this was, again, one of those ones we've used as an example to which we're not getting the reports. So we also don't have a certificate of compliance, which I've hounded them for some time. So in speaking with the chair, we just drafted up an enforcement order. Today was the deadline for them to have submitted the report that was due December 31st. We got one in 2014, we didn't get one in 2015, and here we are now ending 2016, and we don't have one. So they missed today's deadline because I didn't get a report by end of day. The next deadline would be January 18th, when I've required them to have their request for certificate of compliance in, since the project is complete. They could essentially submit all the information at that time and they would be in compliance, so I guess I would, at this point, maybe recommend holding off on fines until that date, but at that point, if they're not in compliance, and I do intend, I have emailed their engineer as well, that I was going to issue the enforcement order in hopes that maybe he would get on it and start the process if we were to sort of be, I don't want to say ignored, but not heard amidst the thunder of what is the large organization that is Kafua. So anyway, I've tried multiple avenues to get to it, and I haven't heard from anybody. So, but I do suggest that you ratify the enforcement order, and then if the January 18th deadline isn't met, I will start sending tickets until we get compliance.
I think that the deadline needs to be stated on the
It is stated.
And what the result will be for failure to comply.
It is.
That needs to be clearly spelled out.
Yep.
No alternatives.
So the enforcement order does say all that.
Has all that, okay.
So, the non-compliance is the failure to provide the reports, assuming they've done the inspections.
Correct.
So that's where they're in violation of the order. Failure to file a request for certificate of compliance till the project's knowingly complete.
It's
What
an,
provision?
No, we're not doing that.
I thought I heard you say that.
well, there
That's not a violation. They can,
is, we've done that before where we
they can
can't,
saber rattling them. That's,
the order is expired, and there is a condition in the order of conditions that says when the work is complete, thou shalt submit a certificate of compliance. So technically, they're in violation. This project's been finished for 2 years. The place is open, vegetated, running.
I just don't want to get hung up on a technicality, because on the substance of failing to have the report, that's bad
And the
enough. but-
inspection is more important,
Yeah.
but let's put them all on there.
Right.
Okay.
Don't leave something out.
So you could see in the enforcement order, I did highlight the fact that, so, and then in the bottom portion are the two dates, the January 11th. Again, I wasn't going to be here over the vacation week, and I knew this would be the first meeting where we'd be addressing this, so that's why I picked the January 11th date for the submission of the report. And then I've just put in there that I expect them to submit for their certificate of compliance by January 18th. We have had multiple communications with their engineer over the past year or 2 years, saying that they were going to, I think they got their bond back from planning. We still have our bond.
Have they been responsive at all? I mean,
They were, like I said, when I emailed about the certificate of compliance over a year ago, they were responsive, and a reminder that they were due for their stormwater management. This was in 2015, but then they kind of fell off the radar.
Are there any other outward violations on the site?
I don't think so, but we don't really know because we don't have the final as-built and all that.
Fresh from memory, there was no resource on site. The resource was actually opposite 125, correct?
Nope, it's in the
Oh, it's
back
in the
of,
back.
the back between the airport and,
That's right.
and the property.
That's right.
We don't know if there's ever been any maintenance done.
I would say
We have
not.
one report
And
from
it's in-
2014.
So it's
Okay.
likely since 14 there hasn't been anything done.
That sounds like the initial cleaning.
Yeah, so, there could be a huge violation if that thing hasn't been maintained.
Okay.
We don't know where it's going or what's in it.
I'm also with the violation. kind of intrigued by where the make and file for certificate of compliance goes.
You put all the requirements in there and, you know,
Or extend.
pick them off one at a time, that's right, yeah.
Apply or extend.
Any other questions? Need a motion?
So the motion would be to ratify the enforcement order at this time, and if you're willing to hold off on the fines until the next meeting, I say we give them that chance, and
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? You want to hold off on the conditions of the order? In other words, the order gives a certain date and you want to hold off?
no, I'm just saying they didn't comply with getting me the thing by the 11th, but I'm saying 1 week before the meeting, which would be the date to file for your next meeting, I need the stuff, or then we're gonna start issuing fines, which
What's that date?
it's in here.
18th.
Yeah, it's the
18th.
18th, January
It is
18th,
18th.
and to be heard at the January 25th meeting.
And that's the
So-
date you call out and I see it, okay.
Yep.
All right, yep, I'm all set, I'll set.
All right, so we
Call
have a
vote.
motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, 242-1169, PC request for 2357 Turnpike, request to continue to February 22nd, and we have a promise etched in blood that they're gonna be ready.
Meadows. We'll see. I hope.
So you want to continue it?
Yeah, one more time, and then that's it.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. And then the last one, we have a letter from the MACC about a pipeline letter to Governor Baker.
You want,
And the
you want
recommendation...
Al to draft this letter? Because I know how much he loves pipeline.
And it's,
In the interest of brevity, I'm going to hold back.
Let's just say Al was the first response email I got that said, put it on the agenda.
I'll only make one comment. We have applicants that come before us that fight for every little inch of the way for far less disturbance.
These
then
guys come in from across the
And these
country
guys
in
come in
Canada
from
and
all
bulldoze
over
everything.
creation, and they dig up everything they want to dig up, and they're exempted. And I'm going to start exempting every homeowner in this town. They can do whatever they want.
we can stay home and watch TV.
Just stay home and watch TV.
All right, so it's
You're just voting to sign on to the letter as a commission. Nobody has to sign anything individually. It's just that
so all we need
So
is...
this is the letter.
and they're going to send it, and they're going to sign which commissions have agreed to sign on.
So we're just going to be
I read
listening.
So
It's
let's
fine.
do it this way. Is there anybody in opposition? Well, Sean's reading it. Are you opposed? Is any?
Sean's opposed to everything so far.
I know, no kidding.
We have to see if we can turn him.
I wouldn't say no, but it's
Just wondering
not
if they're in
encouraging it as
opposition
a renewable,
I'm
you know,
opposed
as
to
a source of energy that's beneficial to the state.
Maybe post the letter too, that's all.
I hear you. I hear you, Sean.
So let's, I mean, just for the people at home, we have them bored to death already. What this really is that to allow a governmental set of policies that attract or allow the attraction of pipelines to come through our state. Not so much that it does anything to our Conservation Commission, because if they end up through our town, as Al clearly points out, they're gonna do what they damn well see fit.
There's no place left for them to put one. They've got them everywhere. They really got no place left unless they start taking private property.
See,
And I do that too.
And they could, well, they could try.
you know, on my part, you asked if anybody opposes. I think I would oppose because I think what is asked for in this letter is a complete ban on pipelines, okay? What I really oppose is what Al touched on, that they can come in and if,
Well, they're exempt. They're
FERC?
under FERC, they're exempt.
But you're saying to remove the exemption, which they're not about to do, because they're not gonna come in community to community and kowtow.
No, it's taking forever.
The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, none of us on this table will live long enough to see that.
well then abide by the state act, okay, you know?
They don't have to abide by anything.
I know they don't, and that's what I oppose. What I don't think the intent of the Wetland Protection Act is to prevent disturbance of wetlands or the buffer zone, which I think that's what this letter says. But we oppose it because
We
it
presented-
disturbs wetlands.
When Maritimes came through this town
I was here.
15 years ago, we proposed to Maritimes a viable and feasible alternative that they rejected outright because it was going to cost them more money.
You're preaching
And
to
we-
the choir.
yeah,
Al.
you know, I mean, so
But
I
that's exactly
agree.
what happened.
I agree.
You know,
And that is exactly what happens. What I oppose is the unfettered projects that can come before us, and, you know, without any local jurisdiction. I don't oppose.
this is a good start though, Jack. Because
Progress.
if you forward this letter and endorse the letter, ultimately, nobody here is naive to think that we're really gonna stop pipelines. But what it'll do is it may, by its very nature, cause some
I get
regulation.
you.
It may make them have to comply. We're not gonna stop, come on, you know,
We might put a
anybody
bend
that
in
believes in that,
policy.
you know, we're not gonna stop anything, but we can start making them have to adhere to some of the regulations at least.
Well,
Or-
they're required to follow the state wetlands bylaw.
They're not.
No.
They're not.
They're
no,
required of
They get a
nothing.
certificate of public convenience from FERC. Once they get that certificate of public convenience, they can do anything they want. If they come in front of you, it's just because their PR people think it's a good idea. They are bound by nothing that us or DEP can put in front of them. Once they get that
They're wasting their
certificate.
time coming before us.
They did it back then because it was a PR stunt. They went before a bunch of little cities and towns. Not so much, they wanted to comply with filing to make it look like, okay, we're working with these guys. We're not, you know, this big agency. But at the end of the day, when this town and several other towns, all the way down to Weymouth Harbor, wanted them to take the pipeline offshore because it's coming from an island in the Gulf of Maine anyway, and we wanted the pipeline to stay offshore and go down to Weymouth Harbor. They said, well, no, thanks for your suggestion, but we're bringing it inland, and we're gonna run it down, and we're gonna stub off it. And that's what they did. And they didn't comply, they don't have to comply. The certificate of public convenience is the ticket, and the feds give them away. They, you know, so, we put a lot of work into that one back then. It was very frustrating, so.
Yeah, but I know there's a gas pipeline that runs along, crosses Forest Street down the road.
That's what he
Yeah,
said.
that's the one.
That's
The Maritime.
That's Maritimes, that's the one that,
I mean, but they
Sable
come in, they put it
Island.
in,
yeah,
and the area is back to the way it was.
well, what's under,
Except it's maintained.
Yes.
It's a permanent alteration.
it's a permanent alteration.
Yeah, it is.
They got access to it, yeah, they go in periodically, but
Well,
I don't see
right.
any necessarily any harm to the wetlands that's being done.
Well, the damage was done during the
Anymore.
construction.
There's no more
The
being
damage
done.
was done during the construction. Again, just use something simple like the Blandings turtle. There were areas of concern, habitat for the Blandings turtle, which now, if you go back in now 15 years later, the turtles aren't there anymore. They didn't do any harm to the wetland itself, but the turtles are gone. And there was a white cedar that was considered to be a protected tree. There was a stand of white cedar that they were obligated to avoid. And they avoided it by about an inch, and they cut off the entire water supply to the root system of the white cedar. The whole stand of cedar is dead. It's all standing deadwood. Everything that they were charged with avoiding or minimizing or mitigating, they annihilated it. It's a 48-inch pipeline. It's not a small
Oh, I
pipeline.
know, it's a big pipeline.
When and if it springs a leak, it's gonna be a big one. So, you know, I'm just saying, it's not a little pipeline. And it doesn't service anybody in this town or in this county. Even in this county, it's a point-to-point pipeline. You know, it doesn't do any good to you or me.
So MACC is forming this initiative. They're looking to take a form letter and just sign a bunch of commission names to the bottom of it?
Correct.
And
It'll just
going
go-
to the governor, and with expecting that to have some clout.
You know, it
I
seems-
think their
it's a
sentiment is
feel-good
right.
vote.
I think it's for the wrong reason, though.
I think rather than stop the
poorly written.
pipelines, they should demand that there be, it's responsibility on the part of the,
Well, I think
to
this,
comply with at least the state wetlands bylaw.
I think it's a dialogue.
And I understand what you're telling me, that.
It's just to maybe put a curve in there and what their power, because they can do it, they can go right through your house if they want to. So I mean,
Or
at
under-
least if
or
there's.
under your house.
Or under,
Well,
but I mean,
again,
at least if there's 250 commissions that sign it, at least maybe the governor will wake up and say, well, maybe we should be able to give some authority on what's happening, because they can do what, they can just come through and just do what they want.
Yeah, but how, and now, is the authority they have that bypasses all this federal or?
Federal.
It's federal.
FERC
How
is
can the
federal.
state turn around and tell the federal
They
government?
can't.
They
It's-
can't.
So they
it's
can't-
feel-
they can't
the
do it.
the truth is, it's feel good at best.
The chances are, if the governor says you can't come through our state, the
So-
feds are gonna come in and say, yes, we're coming through.
So what
But
this-
what they have to do when they come through the state, they have to find a way to pay for it. And there are certain tariffs and there are certain ways that they can leverage public funds, not state government funds, but funds from ratepayers like us, to subsidize the construction of these projects. And some of the governor's current initiatives are looking to give favorable tariffs in order to allow that to happen. There was
The recent one
Supreme
was shut
Court
down for.
shut it down,
because-
reversed that, said, no, you can't do that. They wanted to put a surcharge on electric bills.
Yeah.
Right.
And thank God the the
wasn't
state
federal, it was
Supreme,
state.
state Supreme Court said, no way, you can't do that. So the initiatives are taxation and financial to attract them in. And once they're here, then the federal regulations, they're never going to relinquish those federal,
But again, you have to start somewhere, and we do have federal representation in Congress. At least if you start somewhere, there's a chance. I mean, they're answerable at some point to somebody, and you got to start somewhere. You can't just throw your hands up and say, screw it, we got nothing. You got to start.
well, I'm saying sign on, but I'm also recognizing it.
I know.
We're signing on.
It's a very small step, and like I said, we may not live long enough to
Yeah,
see it.
we're
But
too old.
you got to give it a shot. Give it a shot, or you lose your right to complain. Really, that's the thing.
That's another question.
Yours is on the principle itself.
How long would this letter stand
I think it,
for perpetuity?
So Baker leaves.
I think it just goes.
It's just a letter, it's just a one time they submitted, it is what it is.
Wetland Protection Act
20
just
years
goes
from now,
beyond
none
that.
I mean, I
of us
think
are gonna be here.
MACC is gonna advocate for this regardless, but
Yeah,
having the
as they
backing of
should.
the commissions gives them, a little more clout.
All right,
so.
so let's go this way. Is there anybody on the commission that would be opposed to signing the letter? Doug? Sean?
I'm not, one side of this issue has been very well articulated, and I agree with it. I have no idea what the other side of the issue is, so I'm not prepared to sign off on it, but.
Well, we have till the end of January to sign on to the letter, so if you wanna wait to take a vote at the next meeting after everybody kinda reads through it.
Educates
and-
themselves on it.
Maybe
Excellent.
maybe
I think you
people
gotta
could just
educated vote.
You're gonna
think
need
about it a little
You're gonna
bit.
need a full commission.
Well,
I don't-
what?
No, I think
gonna need a
the-
full
the-
commission.
the-
No, you
The
don't.
votes of the commission are
Oh, you're
majority.
gonna, because you
Yeah,
have
but we wanna try
three
to-
opposed and 3 for.
yeah, but we don't want to go down that road. Honestly, I don't want to go down that road. I don't, if we're not unanimous, don't bother. It should be a unanimous vote, and so, all I can say is, look at it, read it.
Yep. There is another approach, though, and I mean, that's
Write
a
our own
everybody,
letter.
yeah, write your own one.
Write our own
Exactly.
letter.
Why adopt
Exactly.
somebody else's letter?
That's where I was going with signing on a form letter. I think it has more clout if it comes directly from individual commissions.
Yeah.
There could be phrases you want to borrow or use, or write your own from scratch, whatever. But I think that has more clout.
You can do both. They lobby on our behalf. They're a lobbying agency, so they have the attention of legislators that we won't get as individuals. So back in your law, I hate to use this, but back in your lobbyists is a good idea too if they're lobbying in your favor. And that's what they are, really. So, I don't know, maybe just everybody read up on it, think about it, and see what it is,
So when we table it till the next meeting.
Yeah, because, I mean, honestly, I mean this sincerely, if it's not unanimous, don't bother.
Okay? All right,
You generated some discussion anyway there,
There
Jeff.
you go.
I was
Look at
shocked.
I guess everybody did read the letter. So next one, we have decision time on 242-1692.
Decision time, oh, man.
I gotta pull out my
Not
copy.
everybody's fired up, right?
So, I'll try to go through this, just highlighting what is not a standard condition. Obviously, we have our findings at the top, which is just citing the issuance of planning board special permits, and our noting that we did an ORAD in August of last year. Then we have the long list of record documents. And then multiple standard conditions that don't change for any project. I did recognize that there had been a prior filing and that there is a certificate of compliance for that. There is a buffer zone restoration proposal, which is referenced in condition 36, and it also cites the the monitoring that will be required before that's closed out. And prior to construction, we have condition 44, which is the one we were discussing previously, that prior to any work commencing on site, the applicant shall meet with the site contractor, a subcommittee of the NACC, stormwater peer consultant at the applicant's expense, as in parentheses, and the project engineer, wetland scientist, to discuss the construction sequencing / phasing. And then the rest of the condition goes on as was developed by the, in conjunction with the applicant's wetland scientist. And then it goes on to be our standard condition, which says subsequently the applicant shall submit to the NACC for approval a detailed and dated sequence of construction, and that it'll be approved by the NACC or its designated agent. Condition 45, that construction sequence will be turned into the project SWIP, which the commission will also have the ability to review. But essentially, that should be pretty much what's developed in condition 44.
So in good faith, they hire a contractor, he prepares construction sequence and all these protection measures, and submits it to this committee that we're speaking of. We go down that road, and what happens if there's no agreement reached, let's say impasse? They propose this is what they're going to do, and the committee of a partial portion of this commission says, geez, we don't think it's adequate. So what's the remedy there?
I don't think that that's...
Do they not satisfy condition 44 fully, therefore they're not allowed to start construction?
I think the purpose of it was to kind of hash out those details that we couldn't hash out without a site contractor, and we go on to list them, some of them. So the applicant shall address when the permanent residential and commercial underground stormwater management BMPs go online relative to the installation of pavement and building foundations. One of the things Lisa had suggested was that they use those structures once the pavement is in to control stormwater runoff, rather than relying on the other erosion control measures. It wasn't something that I think Joe Pesnol was willing to commit to without having someone on board to say, yeah, that sounds like a good idea at that point in time. I don't think these are like make or break. I just think it's working out the details. And I mean, we've done this with other projects and nothing's ever didn't move forward because
At
of
this
it.
point, I don't think the commission is going to try and reinvent the wheel.
But I think Joe's right. I mean, we wouldn't approve it. It has to be approved by us. And if
That's
you
what
don't
my
approve,
point
if you don't
is.
approve it, then it
But
doesn't go forward.
that's in every order of conditions, that they'll submit a sequencing plan that's acceptable. I just don't think, generally speaking, that there is no commission representation in approving that sequencing. There's no third-party consultants involved in that sequencing. It's usually just us.
Right. So you're
And
saying
it's-
because of the broader involvement, we're more likely to
Well,
reach
that's just what we
consensus.
heard in the meeting, both
Yeah.
from Lisa and from you, is that you wanted to have that sort of, I don't want to call it the Merrimack condos experience, but where we all sat down and said, this is how we're going to phase this project, and because you weren't
More
comfortable with
enriching
what
one.
you saw during the construction, during the permitting phase, you kind of discussed it
Okay.
subsequent to that. I don't see it as any, I wouldn't expect it to be any kind of hindrance.
Why would you say this?
Joe, we could remove the hindrance and take the commission out of it and just have me and Lisa.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just suggesting that if we read this to mean that they must submit something that's satisfactory to that group or whoever, then they can move on to construction. And if they don't submit something that is satisfactory, if we don't deem it to be satisfactory, then they haven't satisfied 44, therefore can't start construction. As long as that's what we're saying,
But that's what we always say.
Yeah.
That condition's always in there. It just, I
Okay.
don't think we heighten it to the level of having a subcommittee
Okay.
sit on that group.
Fair enough.
So,
So that document becomes the SWIP in 45.
right, and then 47, also written by the applicant's consultant, was that the final erosion control plan would be updated once we had all the things that we wanted on the plan determined. That included taking the erosion control line up to the street, where on the prior erosion control plan, it kind of stopped just short of the entire site. Requirement, I guess the next thing would be the determination of a bond. The planning board has a $40,000 bond. They also have the majority of the, site in their jurisdiction. Only portions of the site are in our jurisdiction, so based on some other size of some other projects and things we've permitted in the past, I set this one at 30. Now, granted, you've had bonds up to 120,000, I think, was Merrimack condominiums. That's a project that's built right on the wetland. This project does maintain a 50-foot no-build zone and a 25-foot no-disturb zone, so, but again, that's at your discretion.
Are you talking about condition 50 right now?
Yeah.
Yes. If that's acceptable, moving on.
You guys think that's the right number?
No idea until we have the pre-construction meeting.
Well,
I think the
Well, we're not going to change that
Actually,
number.
vulnerability is great, but the protections of those
yeah.
probably need to be adequate. And if that's the case, what do you really need? There's not a hell of a lot of restoration. There's not, other than any,
What percentage of the project is actually in?
Not much.
That's
Not
right.
much.
See,
Not
that's
much.
the point.
But it's got big stormwater management impacts. The whole project has the whole,
So if that becomes necessary to address at that point in time, we do, but
yeah.
you can't,
but we've just said right now is 30,000 is too much and 30,000 is not enough. Which is it? Right?
I'm saying it's appropriate.
I think it's fine.
I'm saying it's
too.
appropriate. I have no problem with it either way. I'm saying that,
And once
based
things are in
upon the
and
percentage of the
stabilized-
project that's actually, jurisdictional, we're concerned about what might happen in non-jurisdictional areas, but we can't bond that.
That's right. I'm okay
I think
with that
it's
as a starting point. And when you say starting point, I think it gives us adequate protection if something does go wrong.
We have what we need to do to address problems if they arise.
So wetland markers are in there, as is a standard condition. Then we get to the stormwater management conditions. A lot of these are standard, including, having the long-term operation and maintenance plan in there. Where we get to the ones that are not standard, they're 62 and 63, and they, and to some extent 64, they refer to the bay saver and bay filter technologies. Again, those things were decided in the meeting, what the required maintenance would be, and these conditions are taken from what was drafted by the applicant's consultant. Again, the 64, we have requirements that the stormwater be reported to us in other orders of conditions. Again, this one was written by the applicant's consultant, stating no later than December 15th of any given year, the applicant shall provide, and then we'll get the written reports as are required by 62 and 63. They are required to have a certified maintenance person on board and reported to the commission as to who that is. Again, that was drafted.
Well, at the meeting, it was, as 62 references, that the inspector is an employee of the company, Bay
Right.
Filter, under the contract. That's a requirement.
No, it's a Bay Saver Technology certified maintenance
Certified.
contractor. So it's anybody who's certified to
Okay.
handle their system.
But it sounded, I guess
So the maintenance contract
it sounded
and,
like the maintenance was overseen by the manufacturer.
no, the maintenance
had-
contract
they had
and the
private-
qualifications of the certified maintenance contractor shall be provided to the NACC. So we need documentation that the person is certified to do the maintenance.
Okay, I got it.
They already have a private contract that they had lined up.
All right.
Not,
I mean, the certification is not robust, it's simply the manufacturer saying,
yeah.
yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. And
I think even-
we acknowledge his credentials.
I was just doing the minutes from the meeting, and Lisa said it isn't rocket science to maintain these things.
Exactly.
So it's confined space
Are
entry.
we going to include that in the decision? It's not rocket
It's
science?
not rocket science part. I think we should probably leave that out.
Deb would take exception to that.
I mean, come on.
We need Matt Patricia.
It was in the meeting, put it in there.
It's in the O&M.
All right. good.
So in the
So
during,
62 and 63, does that include the ongoing, so during construction and then forevermore? These are also part
these
of
are
the perpetual.
perpetual.
These
Yep.
are also part of
They're
the,
written to say,
though they
especially
fall-
63, it says this special condition shall survive the issuance of a COC.
okay, got it.
And we're starting them off with a 5-year contract.
And same with 64, this special condition shall survive the issuance of a COC. 66 is just updating the construction sequencing as things may change. 67 is as-built of anything that's right up against the 50, again, drafted in conjunction with the applicant's consultant, picking out segments of walls that are right next to the 50. The only thing I added was there are 2 stormwater outlets that Lisa had called out that are really close to the 50. We want to make sure those don't wind up inside the 50. But that's basically just the proximity to wetland thing, not
Just
a...
survey control.
Right. This 68 was something Lou discussed during the meeting, and we have included in other, I don't know if I worded it right, I tried,
I would suggest that instead of should, you should put shall.
shall. So that's just,
The project owner shall inspect and submit reports confirming the engineered slopes and fill are built in accordance with the plans approved and referenced herein.
so this came out of, during the meetings, Lou asked if there would be a structural engineer involved in the construction of the walls and the compaction of the fill and those sorts of things. And I think compaction reports generally get submitted to the building inspector. We're just asking for copies.
Compaction reports get submitted to the building inspector only under the buildings and under foundations, not in fills in the parking lots.
So we specify that, the only other place, I think, there's an engineered slope where, near the project entrance. That's the only place where it isn't either involved in the wall or the structures, I think.
Okay.
But we do call that one out. During the placement of engineered fill, the project engineer shall inspect and submit reports confirming that the engineered slopes and fill are built in accordance with the plans approved and referenced herein. Copies of compaction reports and other related information should be provided to the NAC. And we're gonna change those things to shall.
It should, shall, yeah. And information shall be provided.
Condition 69 is something I pulled from, this order of conditions is based on the one we did for West Mill, and because it contains some of those, again, very important underground stormwater, that if there are any deviations or changes during installation or circumstances requiring adjustments of the design, they should be brought to the attention of the NACC or its designee for review and approval prior to actually making those changes. I don't think that's overly burdensome. There's no dewatering proposed, but there's a provision if they should need to do so. 71 is the stabilized construction entrances, 72 is pavement sweeping. Most of these things are standard. No stockpiling within 50 feet, but there are designated stockpile locations on the plans. I think that's pretty much it for non-standard. 86 is that there'll be a non-backwashing cartridge-style filter on the pool. I think the Board of Health's requirements for pools serving some kind of community setting be that anyway. And then the only other thing I did is, again, for West Mill, in the as-built, Lisa had suggested that we include that inverts of all drainage structures above and below grade and have an engineer's certification, and that they be noted on the plan, so that when it comes to final stormwater review, we don't have to go find every invert and outlet in its location on the plan. There's some kind of table or specification that puts all that information there for us to look at. And that's it.
Just one question. The buildings, how are they gonna be heated? You know how the buildings are gonna be heated?
With a gas pipeline.
Big ass one.
But, no, well, I'm asking
Oh,
because.
because underground
you-
storage
you
tanks
got-
are one of
I
those
mean,
things we sometimes miss.
Yeah, we conditioned it in number 82.
Oh, but they just can't be in the 100-foot buffers, underground. And that's underground fuel oil. I think that's actually like a state, that's underground storage of fuel oil.
Right.
I don't think that's allowed statewide, that, I think we put it, it's one of those things
That's a
that's
special permit, UST's.
for oil, for fuel
Not a
oil.
special permit?
There's no,
USD.
yeah.
And you don't have any?
No.
All right, so they, he
Okay.
said they don't have any.
They don't have a,
It's one of those
He said they
things
don't
that's in
have any
every order, and
USDs.
I'm not even sure you could really do it without some kind of special permitting.
No,
It's like
yeah.
gas tanks at gas stations.
That's my
Right.
point. That's a special permit. That's
Okay.
a whole different thing.
So, your approval would be as amended if you're so inclined.
So moved.
Second. Very well written.
yes, it was.
Nice
good.
job.
Good
Nice
job,
job.
Nice job.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. And the most important part, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Well said.